we go live, and then there's a period where it doesn't matter what we say because it doesn't actually nobody hears us. And then so this is me filling in that time wherein nobody would hear us. All right, we are here. Hugh, I'm so grateful. I'm so glad we get to do this. We're talking leadership uncertain is the name of this podcast. Last time we did episode 0. This is episode 1 of Leadership Uncertain, Adventures in Confusion, Power, Love, and Dignity. We're all adrift without being adrift. And so we thought we might drift along together. Maybe lend each other an oar now and again. What are you thinking right now,
Well,
Hugh?
well, it's funny that you should say that. I'd like to think that we have imagined a destination, a series of aspirational sentences that coalesce into something that we can communicate with the teams that we lead.
Hmm.
And if we speak clearly enough and with enough conviction and certainty, we pretend to seem like we know what we're talking about.
We
Um,
pretend to seem like we know what we're talking. That's a lot. That's a lot
yeah,
of layers away from
yeah,
knowing anything.
yeah. Well, it's funny. I did share this with a friend of mine, and he has quoted me on many occasions. I don't know how I feel about this, but it definitely shows you that I was a younger person once upon a time. I told him, and I meant it, that it almost seems like it is better to be certain than to be right.
Mm,
Because at
mm,
least with certainty, you have the ability to convey and convince other people to do stuff that might not make sense in the hope that you achieve something that has not yet been done. And I am at a beautiful place in my career where I have a bunch of people that trust me to make decisions.
mm.
And
Ain't that a kick in the pants?
well, and it's wonderful. I did have a mentor once that said, you have met with success if you can garner enough loyalty from a group of individuals who call themselves your team, such that they would follow you into the depths of hell to see if you get burned.
Mm. You know, already we're not having the conversation I was expecting to have. Uh, and you just reminded me of a post
Hmm.
that I put up on LinkedIn recently, where I was recalling something that happened, I think 11 or 12, maybe even, yeah, it's 13 years ago,
Wow.
where I was sitting after a major project that my team and I bled for, sometimes literally. You know,
Hmm.
these were folks that were getting a fraction of what they were worth, and we were just sitting around after the project was complete. We went to the Patty Coins pub in Tacoma, Washington, and we were sitting there, and we were just doing a practice that I love doing after a long hard project. I love getting together with the team
Hmm.
and saying to individual people, you just say, Hugh, I want to tell you about something that I've appreciated about you during this project, and being really specific
Hmm.
about some quality, something that you did, some way that you that you showed up. And
Hmm.
I tell you, and then the ball's in your court now. We pass the baton, and you find there's somebody that you have got some gratitude to express, and we just go around the table, and I'm feeling teary even just thinking about it. This woman on my team said, Aaron, we would walk through fire for you. And I remember saying, and because it was true, oh my gosh, I, I'm I'm just I'm just so touched. I don't even know what to say. Thank you. And I remember thinking, and I still think this is true, it's you that you would walk through fire for. And I believe that the reason that she said it, and the reason other people around the table nodded and said, "Mm-hmm," is that it, as a director of theater, and I read a book. this is this is not linear. This thought. I read a book by I think it was Bill Ball's book on directing, in which he said the first time any actor comes to you in a show and says, "I want to try this," even if you know it's not going to work, say, "Show me. Let me see it." And so I did that. I did that every time after once I read that book. I did that all the time. And sometimes I was right. Yeah, that was not a good idea. And often they were able to discover that for themselves. And also very often I discovered that their idea was fantastic. And so there was a way that I, during this project, kept asking people for just a little bit more. I thought you got a little something, you're holding a little something back out of fear. I think you got something in there. It was not me asking them to put in more time or more effort, but to put in a little bit more risk, a little bit more of them. And they told me a number of times during the course of this project, "Wow, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I was capable of that."
Now
And
you have sparked a memory for me as you're saying this that's bubbling to the surface. Who knew that this would be so cathartic? So I used to train drill teams. I don't know if I shared that with you. For
you
15
have.
years, I used to, have children walk around in parking lots fancy. And
Walk fancy.
and we got good enough that we won a lot of um, national grade titles. We never placed first, but we always placed second or third at the
Mm.
national level, and we had to beat a lot of people to get there. It's funny. The sport really doesn't exist anymore, but that's a conversation for another day. Um, I remember one of the things we would do is we would train them, and they would be as young as 11, as young as 12, and as old as 20. So to have a bunch of kids from
Wow.
12 to 20 and to have to, we would train on Friday nights from 6 to 9:30, on Saturdays from 10 to 5, and on Sundays from 1 to 5. So that was a lot of time for kids that are, normally written off to not be able to pay attention to anything, to have to pay attention to a lot of things. And
To the
one of the
extent that they can win awards at the national level.
for walking fancy and playing volleyball and running miles and taking tests and panel quiz and a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, uh, one of the things we had to do was run. And one of the challenges I remember having to run one Saturday that was, again, Miami Springs in the summer is just a different experience for those of you who are not familiar with heat. And so we had to run 10 miles and as a group together. And for most of it was in step, so in cadence.
Oh, wow.
So your left and your right foot hit the floor at the same time as a team. And that was teaching them how to be together. And I was supposed to run with them. And I remember the best way I learned to run 10 miles with a bunch of people was backwards and screaming.
Backwards and screaming.
Yes. And so what happens is that I focused so much on them and the ones that would straggle. And so for me, the 10 miles wasn't about 10 miles. It was a mile with them. And I was running backwards, looking at them and motivating and singing songs. And then one would straggle and I would run back. So I would put somebody in charge to take my space and run backwards, yelling at folks. And I would run to go get that person and motivate them to run back with me and stay with the group. And that was just
Mm.
done mile after mile, step after step. So for me, it wasn't about getting to mile 2 or mile 3. It was just staying long enough to go catch whoever fell behind and running back with them. And it would take somewhere on the order of like an hour and a half to 2 hours to get everybody to run the full 10 miles. It was it was a lot. But when we were done, well, it was more than that. 2.5 hours, I think, was the longest we took. But then they would come around and sit, and they would say, "We just did that. We just ran 10 miles together." We and it was interesting to see where people would focus. Some people would focus on the fact that they never run 10 miles in their life, much less run 10 miles and not fall behind. Other
Mhm.
people would focus on the fact that I just ran 10 miles and I don't know what's happening. Other people would focus on the fact that they didn't run 10 miles in unison, which was the objective. And so they would feel deflated by it.
Mm.
And I was responsible for carrying, running back and forth so many times that I think I may have run 15 miles just because of the back and forth. And it was interesting that, as the leader of the group, I had to be prepared to do so much more than anybody else and just be okay with that. Even though the destination was the same, the effort was just, I was ready to give a different level of effort, and that had to just be okay.
Mm.
And what was curious is we had a place to go, the 10 miles, 10 times around this particular place, and it was a mile every time we went around. But there was a point in time where it wasn't even about getting to the goal anymore, as it was staying together, keeping morale high,
Mm.
singing songs together, finding ways to go pick up or slow down for the people who needed a slower pace. All of those things began to fill the space where the sweetness of the destination or the goal had long lost its luster. And now we were just grinding and finding way to find joy in
Mm.
whatever that grinding was supposed to be. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are there are at least some ways in which you are just so obviously so much better at that than I am.
That's
The
what.
the At finding joy in physical tribulation. Because
Oh my gosh.
you tell me about these things that you do that just sound miserable and painful to me. Running 10 miles, for example, though it's hardly the most of them. And there is something. I mean, I certainly have experiences that I can relate to that, and to the way we do it is really the point. It's not the destination. The way we do it is the point. If we can be proud of who we were today, then we boy, are we ever successful.
I I I am learning that at new and exciting levels almost every day.
You and me both. Uh
So yeah, well, if you have a story, please tell it.
I
Otherwise, I
do.
have
So
one for you.
it brings us back to, but right before we hit record on this,
Mm.
or and what went live on this, I told you, I'm having an experience, or have had an experience in the last day that the same events would have led to a very different experience for me, even just a few months ago, I think, where you and I, as the heads of small businesses, and other listeners probably heading up small businesses, we're involved in sales calls. And I had a sales call last week. It was really fun. I had a fun time talking to this guy who was considering working with us to improve the culture of his team. And we set another meeting for Monday. And I think it was Monday. Yeah, it was Mondays. And then so we were supposed to meet at 11 a.m. And at 11:02, I just gave him a quick call. Hey, just want to check in, make sure we're all good. Are we going to meet? He said, I'll be on in a second. So at 11:07, yeah, I got into email and things like that. 11:17, I shot him a quick text, and it said something very much like, "Hey, dude, uh, time for me to move on with my day. Shall we reschedule?" And then I skipped a couple of lines, and I said, "Or is this uh, your don't want to tell me to my face way of giving me the brush off?" And I put a little smiley face next to it.
Okay.
Right? I thought that's kind of a fun way of making it easy for him to say, "Yeah, let's not keep going. I changed my mind, whatever."
Okay.
And his response by text was so surprising to me. It was, "Dude, question mark, seriously, question mark, don't call me again."
Wow. Okay.
and,
Okay.
and what's different about what's happened since then is I would have just simply shut up. Some months back, probably I would have simply shut up. I would have gone, all right, and then I just would have ruminated over
Hmm.
what the hell happened here. Like I have no idea what happened. But instead, I wrote him back, even though he said, "Don't call me again." I wrote him back. I just said, "Wow, I've clearly caused some offense, rubbed you the wrong way, when my intention was simply to, in an amusing fashion, get us onto the same page. Whether that's we're gonna go forward, or maybe we'll go forward, or definitely we won't."
Okay.
Um, and I'd love to know if it's at all possible that we might, uh, I don't know what I said, but, pick up from here, fix things and move on together, whatever it was. And there was no response for
Hmm.
24 hours, for 36 hours. I thought,
Okay.
all right, he meant it when he said, "Don't call me back." He meant it. So again, I'm not even trying to rescue the sale at this point, which by the way was some real promising revenue. I talked to my team about this potential. We started moving things around to make it possible to work with this guy and his team. And I thought, what's bothering me now is not the lost revenue. There's still something bothering me, which is I don't know what happened. So I picked up my phone again and I texted him again, and this time it said, I, "I'm just hoping I can learn from you."
Hmm.
What was it? Like, if we never talk again, I would just like to know, what was it?
Okay.
And then I broke down my message. Was it that I called you dude? Was it that I said I needed to move
You
on with
wrote
my
all of this
day?
in text.
Yeah,
You wrote all of this in.
I
Okay.
I did, right? Was it
Okay.
because it thought it bore the strongest likelihood of getting a response? Um, was it that I told you that I needed to move on with my day and suggested that we reschedule? Was it that, uh that I intimated that potentially, and I didn't use the word intimated, that you might be trying to give me the brush off? Or was it that I joked about it? And he wrote
Okay.
back, uh, you know, uh, "When I was a BDR, I learned to call prospects sir, ma'am, Mr., Ms, and then, and you called me dude." And okay.
Got it.
Got it indeed. And here, so one thing that was different about what I did now, with the level of, I think, confidence and just kind of self-assuredness and detachment that I have now, that I didn't have even a half year ago, um, was I wrote him back. And then the second thing is that I I truly believe, despite the fact that the revenue would have been nice, dodged a bullet.
Oh my gosh, did you ever?
Do-
Did you
do-
ever?
Dodged a bullet.
Now I will
Because
intimate.
we
I
just would
will
have
intimate.
made each other miserable through the whole engagement.
Well, and the wonderful thing is people don't just talk with their words. They talk with everything, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I listened to that and I went, well, that's a lot of patience, and I applaud you for going through the process to actually solicit and illicit feedback. That's whew. First of all, if he is so needing of respect, then if you're telling me that he made a commitment to be there in a second and 17 minutes later he was not, then that's clearly a one-way street.
Indeed.
So I will be honest with you, I have enough crazy in my life from the outside that I have learned not to spend too much time ruminating over why crazy happens and the inexplicable occurs. Now, I applaud you again,
Mm,
getting the feedback as to exactly why that person had that reaction. That's intriguing. At the same time, we have an interesting rule at the business that we try not to create rules based on individual experiences that
yeah.
may be aberrations.
That is so important and valuable and hard.
Yes. Yes. I
If
need to
if
say that out
anything,
loud. Yes.
right, and I could easily go, okay, the new rule is
You
don't
always
call
call him
anybody
sir.
dude,
Yeah,
right?
well. But you
If
know what?
anything, if anything, the new rule is call everybody dude.
See, and spoke him out.
That's right. Because
Get that out
I
early.
call my wife is dude, my daughter is dude. Back when I was in high school and I had rabbis teaching me, my rabbis were dude. My dog is dude, everybody's dude. And so
Uh,
if it's gonna cause a problem that I sometimes call you dude,
let's
then
find out
we're
early.
probably not gonna be happy together.
Well, and you make a good point. Yes, I do agree that respect between customer and service provider very important. I
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree, and I don't resist the point. I said it in a different way already. This particular individual, I am so grateful for him, and I am so grateful for your experience with him. Uh, be careful what you learn from it. And it sounds like you're already on your path to being careful what you learn.
Right.
The challenge is though, and this, yeah, I've told you that I've been pretty inspired by reading some of the books that have come into my path recently. This whole Simon Sinek's
Mm,
Start with Why book that's quite old and quite popular, but I don't know, it found me at the right time just a few weeks ago. And what I've gotten from it is I have doubled down on being very careful and selective about who gets to do business with us and the team.
mm,
And if those people are not in line, or at least we don't determine that they're in line with our values and who we are and our culture, and they don't, not that necessarily we don't have the appetite to be open and inviting with our beliefs. That's not the point I'm making. But if you aren't congruent with the way we show up to the world and create value,
mhm.
then okay, we there are providers that we are happy to refer you to. There are competitors that we have that would love your business.
Yes.
And the confidence now that I am able to discern and empower my sales team with to simply say, you know what? Let us simply design this deal so that you recognize that we are not a great fit for you
Mm,
and you can decline the opportunity to do business with us.
I love that. Connect the dots for me between because it seemed like you were and I can imagine how this works. Connecting Simon Sinek's Start with Why
Ah,
with this practice that you're naming of inviting people not to be your clients.
sure. So one of the theses that I absorbed from his work was that we as business owners are in business for a reason.
Mhm.
and getting incredibly clear about that reason. And for me, it's really, really a blessing because I started this business out of a mixture of neurosis, psychosis, and desperation. So, like, it's just pure pain and trauma that drives me to make the perfect migration. Like, I'm after it. And every time I get to do a migration, it's every time I get to talk about a migration, it's a thumb in the eye to all those people out there that I grew up with, five
Mm.
years telling me and my team that our business did not need to exist because we didn't solve a real problem. And I started this for me. I needed the service to exist because it didn't exist in a way that was palatable at the time.
Yeah.
It was either too slow, too error prone, too expensive. Like pick, but the mix of things we bring to the marketplace, they are born out of the things I needed from the marketplace. And so for me, finding customers was just finding myself, finding the
Right.
level of desperation and hatred and anger and frustration that I felt because I didn't have anybody to migrate my data.
What do you mean there's no need in the marketplace? I needed it.
I am the customer that you're telling
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
we got that for 5 years, and then something changed, and now we are a household name in the industry that we belong in. So what's curious is I wake up every day dreaming about ways to get it better, to get it
Mhm.
faster. And thank goodness I have a salesperson, or I wouldn't make any money because I'd be more interested in doing the work than actually selling and making it profitable and the like. And so the way we connect the dots is we are at this point a premium service. So we don't if you wish to spend less money getting your stuff done adequately, we can recommend you to one of our competitors.
Mhm.
They'd love to have your business. But we are an incredibly receptive, responsive, high quality solution provider that will ride with you even if you have a commitment to your own sabotage. And we do that from a place of possibility, compassion, and care.
Mhm.
And we get paid for it.
And so
And so,
there's that why.
yeah,
And so you invite people to maybe not be a client if
they come to us and they're like, well, what's the best price you can give me on a migration? And I will
Gotcha.
say, and I say this in sales teams all the time. I'm like, so how are the negotiations going with your neurosurgeon?
Right.
Getting the
Yeah.
best deal on a brain
Yeah.
surgery? Because this is kind of like that.
Uh, I have a prospect right now. It's kind of like that where they said you're the fourth vendor we're talking to. You're kind of an afterthought.
Okay,
Um, right? They didn't say that, but that's the
sure,
message I received.
sure.
And here's what we'd like for you. It's a potential merger. They want our help, kind of helping bring the best culture
Coalesce.
out of both of those cultures as they merge. And they said, "How long do you imagine that would take?" I said, "Probably 18 to 24 months." And they said, "That's about what other people are saying. Can you give us a proposal for that?" And I said, "I look forward to our next meeting." And so in the next meeting, I said, I've got two pieces of bad news for you. Let's start there and see if we should talk at all. One is you asked me for a proposal to bring you from here to there. My first bit of bad news is no. Um, no, I can't because,
I don't know
like
what
your
I'm getting into.
neurosurgeon,
Right,
I've got to do the scans before I tell you what I think the course of action should be.
sure.
And then the second piece of bad news is it's going to be really expensive. And and I gave them a ballpark, and then should we keep talking? And the answer was yes, and we're talking, and we're the favorites.
And
And
probably because you could be strong enough to have that disposition.
100%, and it's fun for me. It's so much more fun for me to be me and know what we're capable of, and and to play with them to consider them playmates and talk in these ways that are kind of irreverent without being without being disrespectful.
Yes.
And in part, but to say I want to respect your time enough that I give you the bad news up front, so that you might want to disappear. And it's so much more fun,
Yes.
uh, and for both of us
Well,
most of the time.
and I'll tell you, I think my daughter has a very warped sense of what I guess I do for a living, because sometimes she'll be walking down the hall and she'll hear me on the phone and she'll say, "Daddy, why do you laugh so much all day? Why are you laughing all the time?" And it's because I'll be honest with you, when I'm in a sales call, we're talking about data migration. If we don't laugh about something, I mean, come on. So the idea is, how can I create an environment where the person that we're talking to is heard and understood? At
Mm,
the same time, I'm I'm here, and I think this is important because
mm,
it's important for us to recognize that we're not here to sell anything.
mm,
And that's a weird thing to say. Like when I show up to a sales call, and for many years, I think we were batting like 70% wins on, 7 out of 10 sales calls we would get. And if we didn't get it, then the same prospect would come back through a reseller. So it was like, whatever. Um, Today it's a little bit worse because we're introduced earlier and earlier in the sales cycle. So people are empowered, but they may not have the budget, and there are lots of reasons that people don't buy from us, and totally fine. The fact that we get to support someone being able to have an informed decision is all that matters.
mm,
And what's been really neat at this evolution where we are in our sales cycle, or our sales evolution for our process, is recognizing that we get to be agents of information and empowerment.
mm.
And so it's not about closing us out, to the point where we now have a system that when I get to the end of the technical portion and I have answered all of their questions and we have had all of our fun and we have gone through the processes and described all the stuff, I will say to the salesperson on the line that's representing PT, I'll say, "This is where you banish me from the call. It is now time for me to disappear into the darkness." And I'll say that because I don't care anymore. Like, I couldn't care less.
That's why you
Because
wear black shirt every
this is
time,
why I wear black shirts, because you
so
know
you
what?
disappear into the darkness.
I can banish into the darkness and be okay. And what happens is that, and we'll hear this a lot of times, people feel like they've been helped. And I'll even joke. I'll say, "You know what? With respect to the cost, we don't cost an arm and a leg. We only cost an arm. So you just pick which one you want to give me." We'll make fun, and we'll say, we'll things like, "Well, let's make sure that the chair you're sitting on is sturdy enough, because when you hear the price, you might fall out of it." So I mean, we'll make we'll make light of it, because
Yeah.
again, we're going to talk about, we're going to be honest, we're going to engage, we're going to give them humanity, we're going to give them answers, and that's all we really. I
Mm,
don't get into the negotiation about the price, because she will do that. My job is to ensure that they have a comprehensive and clear vision of what's possible for their scenario. If I have done that in excellence, they should be able to do one of two things: either see their future in a solution that I sell, or see their future in a solution that I don't sell at all,
and
or
either
yet.
way, they are seeing their future, which ties back to something that you said that's been sticking with me since you said it, about the and I don't remember how you put it, but the potency, the power of helping people to feel seen and understood.
Well, it was a long time ago. I came home from work, and my wife said to me, "I just watched this episode of Oprah, and I need you to watch it now. Sit down and watch this." This
Huh.
was, goodness, at least 10 years ago. And I watched it, and what Oprah said is that people need three things in their lives. They need to be seen, They need to be heard, and they need to know that they matter.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, that made the most amount of sense to my, I guess, no, it wasn't 10 years ago, it was 20 years ago. Jesus Christ, I'm old. So 20 years ago, I sat and I saw that, and it changed my thinking forever
Mm.
because I realized people needed to be seen and heard and know that they matter. And it was at that point we owned a chain of financial retail service centers in North Carolina. And I went back to the stores, and it was at that point that I started talking to the angriest of our customers. And I loved it. I loved dealing with really angry customers because it was a fun game. Let's play a game. The game is, how can we support this person to increase the contrast? It's a game of contrast. And the goal was, how can I make it so that this person is absolutely in bliss when we're done,
Mhm.
whether or not I can solve their problem? That became the goal.
Well, it's such an attainable goal when
Mm,
we let go, right? Here we are. We're in this show we're calling Leadership Uncertain:
mm,
Adventures in Confusion, Power, Love, and Dignity.
sure.
There's so much uncertainty when we're faced with another human being. I love how you often remind me, we are universes wrapped in skin. So how could I
Yes.
possibly know what's across the table from me? You and I met when we were conducting a training,
Hmm.
which by the way I'm conducting again this week. And
Congratulations.
one of the one of the things that I love about conducting this training is I'm training myself
Mm,
the whole damn time. And today we're talking about Stephen Covey saying, "With people, slow is fast, and fast is slow." We're training people to have greater influence with their consulting clients so that they can get resistant, reluctant, recalcitrant people through their processes on time and with much less struggle. And and man, when you've got a deadline and you've got responsibility, you've got a commitment to meeting that deadline, it is so easy to push. And it is so easy to cajole, and it is so easy to try to pull people along. And it is so easy for me to lose my cool.
mm,
I don't lose my cool externally very much.
sure.
Internally, I can lose my cool. And the methodical process of even with my wife, I will feel mad.
Mm,
And if I go through what I know is the effective process of compassion,
mm.
say, all right, sounds like this is really important to you. And take a deep breath and hear the information that she will inevitably bring. And the same thing with clients, right? Sounds like this is really important to you, or sounds like I've really rubbed you the wrong way. um, sounds like you're really disappointed. Whatever it is, to express that and hear the response
Mm,
and feel my heart shift,
mm,
and to be able to better and better articulate where the other person with whom I may still be furious is coming from.
mhm,
And in that process, become less furious myself.
mm.
And in that process, watch the walls come down with them. And then we've both got so much more influence with each other.
Mm. And
It's
still,
such
you
a
may want
it's
to,
such a
you
grace to
want to,
be able to conduct
you
this
you may want
training.
to actually torch yourself. Well, let's get back to the story you were telling before you transition. So you were saying that that's the thing you want to bypass. Is that the? I was hanging on, or maybe I misunderstood.
With people, let me kind of walk the steps a little bit. We all crave being seen, heard, understood, and to know that we matter.
Got it.
And to provide someone with that experience of being seen, heard, understood, and to experience that they matter
Mm.
feels so slow and laborious at times. And how could I possibly when I'm not getting what I need?
That's a powerful
Um,
one.
and it makes me emotional right now. Just not even thinking about any circumstance.
Sure. Sure. That
And
makes sense to me.
to remember what Stephen Covey said, with people slow is fast and fast is slow. And to have the grace that I get to keep training myself while other people pay me to train them.
Well,
To
wasn't
slow
it Bill
down.
4 that was saying, thank God customers buy my cars from me before they're ready, before they're finished,
Yeah.
before they're perfect?
Um,
You said a couple of things that I feel a need to interject
do it.
and poke you a bit. But then you said the last thing, which I think was the most intelligent thing you've said today. And you said a lot of intelligent things. I'm not throwing you under the bus. I like you too much. So what I'll tell you that you said that really caught my attention is that you're training yourself.
Mm,
And I
every day.
realized for me, that's the very selfish activity in the room. Because I recognized I was at a spiritual talk 15 years ago, 16 years ago now. And in that talk, the teacher on stage posed a very intriguing challenge, and he challenged us and said, "What if you knew a secret? The secret was that everybody, and I mean everybody in your life that caused you frustration was a paid actor,
You told me that.
and they were paid to take you out of being present."
Mm-hmm.
How would you approach your life if that were always the game being played?
That's the game. Right.
And so,
And what?
selfishly enough, Aaron, I have recognized that we are constantly playing.
Mm,
And my goal now is not being this version of the myself that I want to show up as. My goal isn't, oh my gosh, I've got to take care of this person. My goal is just simply remembering I'm playing the game, because most often I'm forgetting. I'm just going all day long, forgetting, remembering. Somebody does something, I react, oh, that's right, we're playing. Somebody doesn't do something. Somebody isn't their word. Somebody's lying. Somebody's stealing. Somebody needs to be fired. Somebody needs to be hired. Somebody is giving me the business. Somebody's not paying their bill. Have these outstanding collections. People said they were going to pay and they didn't. They weren't their word. They weren't living integrity. Blah, 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 blah. I have these. And we are playing. Look at that.
yeah.
Look at how messed up I get. And what is that saying about me? What is coming up?
Yeah. Uh, Hugh, but I wondered before we started this conversation if I was going to tell you what made me bawl,
Hmm.
uh, 2 days ago.
Tell me.
I have a problem, which is that I really become not present when someone is either being defensive with me
Hmm.
and they often go together, saying things that to me are clearly unrelated to reality. And you and I have talked a little bit about that before. And so, I recognized that there's my anger comes, as all anger does, out of some kind of panic.
Hmm.
Right? Holy crap, I am not safe is what happens in my limbic system when somebody is defensive with me or when they are telling me things that clearly don't line up with the reality. And the more they double down, of course, the crazier I become.
Sure.
Um,
That makes sense.
and I saw it in a podcast called "The Diary of a CEO." Stephen, I can't
Very
remember.
familiar with the show on YouTube.
Yeah, so
Amazing the people he gets to come.
he was hypnotized on one episode, and his and they just kind of unwired the connection addiction that he had to sugar, right? So there's little little Steven sitting on a hillside, eating sugar and feeling comfortable, right? And kind of, okay, I don't need sugar in order to have that sense of comfort.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, if I've got this wiring is optional, right? This is this wiring of you're defensive or you're saying things that aren't related to reality, and I panic. That's optional. And I did this. The hypnotherapist did something called a regression, and they kind of walked me through as they did with Stephen on the Diary of a CEO. What are some of the earlier recollections you have of these feelings? And I remembered some kid when I wanted to play football in a brand new school said confused. I think you can't hear me anymore. In any case, I'll continue. The ball hit me in the chest and it fell down. We went through a number of things with this, uh, with respect to this experience and others. And then she came back to me. Hugh, do I have you?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good.
You
She
went away
came
for a
back. She
second.
came
No
back
worries.
to
Keep going.
me with respect to this kid who had bullied me, and he beamed me in the chest with the ball, and it fell down. And he said that's what I thought, and I was not permitted to play football, and it really hurt my feelings. And clearly has stuck with me a long time. And we kind of walked through during this hypnotherapy session some of the wisdom of what I've been able to intellectually understand and not entirely implement. And she said, knowing what you know now, if you knew what you knew now in that circumstance with this guy with the football, how would you respond? And I just immediately knew how I would respond, which is, and this is where I started bawling. As soon as I said this, I just started bawling. I said, I would laugh and I would say, good one. You got me. And then I'd pick up the ball and I'd toss it back to him and I'd say, I'm ready now.
And you get to play football.
And I'd say, try me again. And the thing that made me bawl was to say, I'd give him the chance to do better.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So, here I am, uh, this deeply fearful grown-up man panicking when somebody gets defensive with me. And my commitment is now always, always, always to go back and say, one way or another, you good one, you got me. I'm ready now. And to give people the chance to do better. And then in that, I also just I've already begun to discover, learn that the times when I'm wrong, it's not defensiveness. They're not being unrelated to reality. My dropped panic just lets me see reality better too.
Well, and thank you for sharing. That was powerful. I know that as we do these programs, I will be happy to delve into uh, my powerful insecurities and the ways that I show up to the world in which I feel I'm not enough,
Mm.
and the things that have me stray from the person I feel I'm supposed to be. And yet, the other side of that is what a gift. What a gift to know that these are the things you get to face down, that you get to not overcome. because to
Mm.
overcome them suggests that somehow there is a flaw, but instead you have realized that practicing a particular behavior exposes a potential dysfunction that you now get to face.
Yeah,
And
what
I
I get
love
to
that.
set it I get to set it it's not overcoming, right? The more
Yes.
I experience getting past these things, it's not overcoming them. It is setting them aside.
It's almost like putting down the cup of coffee.
Right.
You
It's
can
like,
pick it up the hot cup of
oh,
coffee or you can
my
put it down.
I can't hold more stuff. I can't hold
Right.
that thing. Oh, well, maybe
Just
I
put it
can just
down.
put
They're
this
right.
thing down.
And we play that game. And it allows us to be able to taste freedom.
Mm.
Just a little bit of freedom. I am enthralled. There were two stories and I don't have time to tell you either, I don't think. So we'll just have to wait
Preview
for
of
another
coming
time.
attractions.
But that was not an open loop to try to get people to come back to the next one if they found this model really interesting. But what I will tell you is that it. I'll tell you something traumatic that's interesting. I found out yesterday that the dance studio to which I have pledged my loyalty for the last 5 years is closing tomorrow,
Oh, wow.
and they sent a message out last night saying that they're
Mm,
done.
mm.
And my heart is broken.
Yeah, I
My
know
heart
what
is
an
broken
important part of
because
your
my entire
life.
identity has
Yeah.
been shaped by the last 5 years of dance. And so to find out that they won't be a force in the community anymore is a different level of managing loss.
Mm,
And, one of the beautiful things about loss as it has operated in my life is that it has always created these windows of opportunities for things that could never have been previously imagined. Um, and so in the last couple of days, it's been interesting to reach out to people who have been part of this community in my evolution in it, and reach out to the owners and just tell them how much I love them and appreciate them, and yet recognize that there is so much opportunity,
mm.
so much good that is waiting to explode from this. May not yet be the time to explore it because we get to go through the necessary appropriate grief,
Mm.
but I'm having a really hard time calling anything bad.
Mm.
I got fired from a customer project earlier this year, and I want to tell you it was one of the best things that ever happened. I've been exposed in a couple of ways for things that I have failed at as a father and as a husband, as a partner, and they have done nothing but allow me to recognize what's possible.
Mm.
And so as we take ourselves on, I think we get to, yes, have an ideal in mind about how we'd like to show up to the world, but also realize that everything we get to feel and experience is an unwrapped present. And
Yeah.
how we unwrap it is part of the adventure. I know we are out of time, so I wanted to just end with that as the note that I wanted to share with you, and
I love it.
applaud you on your self-discovery and the things you get to do to have the adventures that make Erin a more interesting person.
Well, I have told a lot of people this year. It's been a hard one.
Mm,
Um, and boy, I've learned a lot. I have grown up a lot.
mm,
And you've been an important part of helping me grow myself up.
mm.
And I just, I think I'll leave us with the thought that, when I was a kid, I thought growing up was something you did until you were 18, and then you left the house and got married and did all the things, and you were a grown up. And here I am, 47 years old, and I sure am still, I'm sure I'm still growing up. So
Indeed.
I appreciate the opportunity to grow up with you, Hugh.
Well, you know that I've often thought of you as a brother that I never had. I'm an only child, and I don't have a brother or a sister. I have a close cousin that was very much like a brother when I was previous to the age of 12. But I don't know that I've met another fella that seems to have so many things in common and sees the world in a way that we get to love on people, we get to
Mm.
have them be accountable, we get to be strong and firm and kind and compassionate and supportive. And we do it in such a way that when we look over our shoulders, we grow up better than we were with them,
Mm.
through them. And whether they stay with us or they go and do other things, the mark on the planet is not in terms of how much money, or not just in terms of how much money we get to make, but we get to create cultures in businesses that people want to build and be a part of if they're going to be awakened.
Mm.
And so thank you for your gift to the world.
And thank you, and thank you, viewers, listeners, who have joined us for today's adventure in confusion, power, love, and hopefully just a little bit more dignity. See you next time.